Seelow Berlin operation, or the Battle for the Seelow Heights, German, Schlacht die Seelower Höhen, was a Soviet offensive operation conducted from April 16 to 19, 1945, as part of the Berlin Offensive and the subsequent battle against the German troops defending the Seelow Heights, a series of numerous hills near the town of Seelow, about 90 kilometers east of Berlin. After being captured by the numerically superior Soviet troops, the 9th German Army was encircled and destroyed at the Seelow Heights. Of the entire 9th Army from the Seelow Heights, only remnants of the 56th Panzer Corps broke through to Berlin. The 11th SS Army Corps, having abandoned heavy weapons, retreated southwest with the aim of surrendering to the Allies. The motorized divisions Kurmark and the 23rd SS Nederland, along with the 303rd, 712th, and 169th Infantry Divisions, and the 502nd Heavy Tank Battalion, which were defending the Seelow Heights, were encircled. Thus, this operation not only led to the destruction of a large German grouping but also prevented the enemy from transferring parts of the 9th Army to Berlin. Undoubtedly, if the Berlin garrison had been reinforced by the 9th Army, the assault on Berlin would have become a much more complex and bloody operation. From April 6 to 9, 1945, the Königsberg operation was conducted, during which the citadel of East Prussia, the city of Königsberg, fell, and its grouping surrendered on April 9. The Second Belarusian Front under the command of Marshal K.A.K. Rokossovsky reached the eastern bank of the Oder River. During the first 2 weeks of April, the Soviet troops made a rapid front redeployment. This allowed the First Belarusian Front under the command of Marshal G.A.K. Zhukov to concentrate in the southern half of its former front, opposite the Seelow Heights. To the south were the troops of the First Ukrainian Front, commanded by Marshal I.E.S. Ikoniev. In total, the three Soviet fronts comprised 2.5 million people, 6,250 tanks and self-propelled artillery units, 7,500 aircraft, 41,600 artillery and mortar barrels, 3,255 launchers for guard mortars, as well as 95,383 trucks. The First Belarusian Front had 9 infantry and 2 tank armies, consisting of 77 rifle, 2 cavalry, 5 tank divisions, 2 mechanized and 2 cavalry corps, 8 separate artillery and 1 mortar brigades, concentrated on the Kustrin bridgehead, 60 kilometers from Berlin. The front had at its disposal 3,059 tanks and self-propelled guns, and 18,934 barrels of artillery and mortars. The troops of the First Belarusian Front delivered the main strike from the Kustrin bridgehead with the forces of the 47th Army, Commander, Lieutenant General F.I. Perkarovich, the 3rd Shock Army, Commander, Colonel General V.I. Kuznetsov, the 5th Shock Army, Commander, Colonel General N.E. Berzarin, the 8th Guards Army, Commander, Colonel General V.I. Chukov, and the 3rd Army, Commander, Colonel General A.B. Gorbatov. The 1st Guards Tank Army, commanded by Colonel General of Tank Troops M. Katakov, and the 2nd Guards Tank Army, commanded by Colonel General of Tank Troops S.I. Bogdanov. Auxiliary strikes were to be delivered north of Kustrin by the forces of the 61st Army, commanded by Colonel General P.A. Belov, while the 5th Shock Army and the 8th Guards Army were concentrated in the direction. The Seelow Heights represented a deeply echeloned defense of the German troops, with defensive fortifications constructed over the last 2 years. The Seelow Heights were defended by units of the 9th German Army and the 56th Panzer Corps, consisting of 14 infantry divisions, 587 tanks, 512 operational, 55 under repair, 20 en route, and 2,625 artillery pieces, including 695 anti-aircraft guns. To the south of the front was the 4th Panzer Army, aimed against the 1st Ukrainian Front. General Gotthard Heinrichsey was appointed by Hitler on March 20 as the commander of the Vistula Army Group. Heinrichsey was one of the best defensive tacticians in the German army. He anticipated that the main Soviet strike would be delivered along the main east-west highway at the Seelow Heights. Instead of defending the riverbank, he fortified the heights themselves, which rise approximately 48 meters above the Oder and overlook the river. He redeployed some of the units defending the banks of the Oder to increase the number of troops defending the heights themselves. The river's floodplain was saturated with spring floods. German engineers destroyed part of the dam and released water from the reservoir upstream, which turned the plain into a swamp. 3 lines of defense were erected behind the plain, a phased system of fortifications, anti-tank trenches, and barriers, linked by a network of infantry trenches and bunkers approaching Berlin. The last line of defense, called the Wotan Line, was located 15 to 20 kilometers behind the front line. About 4,000 people from the 56th Tank Corps, which, as of April 16, 1945, totaled up to 50,000 including support units, about 4,000 from the SS Nordland Motorized Division, around 1,500 from other units of the 9th Army with some field and anti-aircraft artillery, as well as 4 tanks from the Müncheberg Tank Division and several armored personnel carriers broke through from the group of army units defending the Seelow Heights to Berlin. In total, between 13,000 to 15,000 fighters, who became the largest influx into the defense and the main defenders of Berlin.